Hello and welcome to Megan's Mystical Mashup, a conversation about life, the universe, and anything in between. I'm Megan Rounds and welcome to today's show. Today's guest is from New York City and is a world traveler who has visited Africa, Asia, South America, Central America, and Europe. She has her Master's of Science in Journalism from Columbia University and has done TV producing, newspaper reporting, social activism, and NGO work in Africa, Asia, and the US. A lover of astrology, her main modalities are intuitive claircognizant. She studied spiritual life coaching with Iyanla Vanzant, who you may know from Oprah's Fix My Life on the O Network. She joined the Lightworkers Lab in October 2017, and in that time has served as a moderator and currently participates in the 2019 Bliss Retreat Planning Committee, coming up pretty soon, and you can find her in pretty much every group here in the lab. This is her second appearance on the show. Our first show from last September is totally worth a watch. If you didn't see it, and even if you did, it's worth going back and looking at it again. Since our last conversation, she started working on launching her own life coaching practice. Details for that and the link to our first show will be included in the show notes. Please give a warm Lightworkers welcome to Tina Guarino. Woo! Hi, Tina. Welcome.
Hi, Megan. Hi, everybody in the lab. It's a beautiful day here in New York City. Put me on your... There you go. Put me on your... Can I be on Megan's Mystical Mashup blooper reel, please?
Totally. I think I should put one of those together.
You should.
It could be very fun. Well, I'm so happy you took the time out of your weekend to spend time with us and have a conversation.
Thank you for having me back. It was definitely fun last time, so I'm excited.
Yay! Well, I'd mentioned you'd been on the show before, and so we talked in that time about your spiritual journey and all of those fun things that led you to where you were in September and to the Lightworkers Lab. And today we thought we'd talk about some different things, and I'm going to throw it to you to start that conversation on what's top of mind for you today or these days.
Well, I did hear the card you pulled was change, right?
One of the beginning?
Yep. Yes. And so I think we're all gathered here and in part of communities like the Lightworkers Lab and listening to your show because we're all seeking change in some form of our life, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that my spiritual journey has revealed to me is that we have the power, we are magical beings, and we can create whatever reality we want. And the reason we have that power is because we have the power of choice.
Yes.
So it's all we need, because we all can say how we're victims in different areas of our lives and what was done to us here and there. But what biology is showing us, what science is showing us, and if you remember when I spoke with you last time, I had said how I found my spirituality in science growing up as the daughter of a doctor who was agnostic, atheist, with a spiritual psychic mom who was sort of contextualized in the Catholic religion, but not really, and always seeking to validate what I intuitively felt with science. And I would often find that. So, when I would say to my father, oh, there is, life after death, my evidence in science was energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed, and he would often say, oh, I just want to be able to say, I told you so and that I'm right. But then he said, but if I can tell you that, then that means you're right because we're communicating on the other side. So, but back to the topic of change, a lot of us here in the lab were familiar with, the desire to manifest and occupy our dominion. Crystal Ann Compton, shout out to her, founder of the Lightworkers Lab, because it was through her that I first really, I've heard the word before, but never, and I'm pretty much sure everybody who's watching this can agree, put in and understood in the way and how to utilize it and that we can actually access it and that it's our divine right. And so that really captivated me. And utilizing that, then taking that concept of dominion, not just to like stave off a shadow person who comes into the room, or, you know, to utilize it in the astral plane or whatever other dimensions we all journey to, right. But more in our 3D reality here, to have dominion over our mind and over our thoughts. Because oftentimes, I think another thing we hear a lot about is the feelings, you know, like you got to feel it, and feeling is the secret. Prayer is feeling and sending out that magnetic expression and signature and desire into the quantum field so we can manifest it, because that's our power and the way we're created. But what was I saying before? I just lost it. I just went off into the ethers.
Well, you were talking about, you know, how dominion, the importance of dominion.
Right. So we have that power, and it starts with our conscious mind. And I'm super big on 3 people that I absolutely love the most. Well, not the most, that's not true. But I'm very drawn to my trio. Joey D, Dr. Joe Dispenza. You guys might remember him from What the Bleep Do We Know? I highly suggest Googling him. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. And he taught in medical school. And that just speaks my language, because I love science. I love biology. I wanted to be a doctor. And then Greg Braden, who kind of incorporates stuff with ancient civilizations and DNA, but they're all friends. That you can find them all together on the internet. And so those are the kinds of things I'm drawn to. So when we become aware of the fact that we have the power to make a conscious choice, we can disengage all emotional engagements that no longer serve us. Because what that does is it holds energy in your body, and you're maintaining your energetic relationship with either that condition or that person or that belief system, whatever it is. And we harbor it in our body in different ways. Lots of us who are overweight, I've been over 200 pounds. It was everything, all layers of emotions, and cycling over and over and over, because the way it works. Well, let's just first make the distinction between thoughts and feelings. I mean, feelings and emotions. Emotions are part of our DNA. It's in us. It's our survival system to assess our environment. So it is encoded within us. The same way that, you know, you can see animals and then their hair goes up because they sense something. We have that too. And that's part of the subcortical brain. But the neocortical brain, and this is where our power comes, the neocortical, it utilizes cognition and our cognitive faculties to then interpret that emotion. So now we have an even heavier charge. Now we're doubling down on it. So instead of feeling it in our body and utilizing that to assess a situation and move accordingly, am I in a stressful situation? Do I need to, fight or flight? Do I punch the person out, to survive, or do I leave to survive? That's all survival and essential. But to be miraculous and powerful and have dominion over mind, body, spirit, and create the way in which, we are the creation created to create, basically. And so we were created in God's image. So if we're created in God's image, in the 3D world, everyone looks at it like, oh, so is God black? Is God white? Is God, man? Is God a woman? No, we're created in his image, and what's bestowed upon us through our DNA. We can talk DNA in a minute. And our ability to, scientists, they can't figure out the electrical charges. That's consciousness. That's our connection to the quantum field. They say, the mind is, I don't know if it's Joey Dispenza, the mind is the brain in action. And so going back to what I was saying before about thoughts, did I say that right? I saw you processing that.
Well,
I think.
I just read it. I thought it was emotions are energy in action.
That is that too.
Okay.
But the brain, when we stimulate with a signal, we were taught that our DNA and our genes, like people say, oh, I have, you get the BRCA test. Do you have the breast cancer gene? Well, after years and years and years of it believing that we were run by our genes, they've come to find out, think about it logically. If you have the breast cancer gene, then it would express right when you're born and express the way your genes for blue eyes or brown eyes, it would be expressing, and it's not, because it needs to be activated, and it's activated with a signal. And so where can that signal come from?
Right.
Your conscious thought.
Yep.
And then you match that with a feeling. And we've heard Crystal talk about it. She talks about Neville Goddard. It's in the book of Thomas, I believe, in the Bible, which was not removed. But when Jesus says that comment about you can move mountains, preceding that in the book of Thomas, it talks about the concept of aligning your thoughts and your feelings, like that kind of concept, because our thoughts are electrical charges and our feelings are magnetic. You put them together, you get your electromagnetic field. And that's why where somebody's vibrating at, you can automatically feel when someone walks into the room. I may have the same face on, but you're going to feel the energy of it because I'm emanating that on whatever my thoughts and feelings are. And whatever we're running constantly, our personality creates our reality, because our personality is malleable. Our personality changes. Our core essence, no, I don't believe. But our personality is comprised of our thoughts and our feelings, which when we run those over and over, we now create a belief system, which then becomes the lens through which we experience the outer world and our perception. So the way we change our DNA or turning on genes and turning off genes is by a thought, because then we're sending a signal, and this is biologically proven. It has to receive, the protein gets a signal, and then the protein changes, which then changes the function that it does. So that's the way our body works, because we were created to self-heal, and we have everything we need within us. And I used to say, that God, source, creator, provided everything we needed, all the medicine, which I still do believe that, in our environment, like in the rainforest and stuff. But truly, it's within us. And it all starts with a conscious thought. And the interesting thing about thoughts is they say we have 70,000 thoughts a day. And that 95% of those thoughts, by the time we're age 35, are just a rerun, are the same thoughts, and only 5% are new thoughts. So we want to change, going back to the card from the beginning of this, we want to change our reality, but we didn't change our personality, our thoughts and our feelings, which are creating the belief system, which is creating the perception. So how can you change when there's no energy, there's no momentum, because there's no energy in the current moment, because all that energy is preoccupied with the past and the emotions that are locked into that, and running that programming and that wiring and firing in the mind that keeps that all locked in place.
Totally.
So,
I'm kind of smiling.
Sorry, I went on a rant. I'm sorry. I'm like,
No, I'm trying to organize all of that in my mind, and that's kind of a scary concept, because my mind isn't organized sometimes. So it may come out in like bits and pieces.
Well, it really goes like this. You have the power to make a conscious choice. And as long as you accept and are aware of that and understand that and act on that, then you have the power to create whatever life you want to have, whatever experience you want to have, because those thoughts send signals, because you're connecting into the wave of the quantum field where energy, you create from energy. Matter cannot create matter. The energy is already occupied in the formation of what it created. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when we take our minds off of all those snapshots that we have, those memories that we run over and over and over that keep that same neuroplasticity, groove going on. Actually, I said that opposite way, but anyway, you get what I mean. The wiring in the brain, you can't change from there. But the minute that I like the way Joe Dispenza says it. He goes, as long as we're in this incarnation, we're the singularity expressing as the individuals of who we are, right? Our individual expressions of spirit, source. But in this realm, and we talked about this in the previous show, when we were talking about A Course in Miracles and the egoic mind versus the divine mind, when we're in this realm, we're in the realm of separation and otherizing and what have you. So what happens is, I just lost my thought, but it'll come back. In the realm of separating, things particularize, like matter becomes form, right? No longer the wave. When we stop saying, someone, something, I'm someone, you're someone, we have to get into the area of no one, no thing.
No
it's
time.
Like infinite possibility. And then once we get there, we then connect to that quantum field. And now, because we know we have the power to make that conscious choice, we send that signal out, we match it with the feeling, we create that electromagnetic field out there, and then boom, quantum entanglement tells us how everything, it can happen in a holy instant.
Yep.
Holy instant.
I'm just thinking about if that is what it takes for us because we need some form of proof or validation. Is that why it's
what do you mean?
Well, is that why it's so hard to create that kind of change within ourselves without having visited the quantum field?
I think it's all of the conditioning. It's our personal conditioning from childhood. It's societal conditioning, because right now, what we're being taught about our own body is inaccurate. What we're being taught about food is inaccurate. I mean, there are so many systems that are in place that are so inaccurate and so old school. Yeah. And while there's current data out, like Darwin's theory of evolution is not accurate. They've done the human genome test. They've tested ancient DNA. We did not evolve from them. You don't go from 48 chromosomes to 46 chromosomes. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on that, but I don't want to get stuck on that tangent. And yet they aren't changing it. Yeah. And Darwin was like from 150 years ago, and Darwin himself even said, this is just a theory. Someone will come along and debunk it. And he said, if the missing link is never found, then it just stays a theory. We would have never found the missing link. So, but I did. I went there. Sorry.
Well, and I think it's important to bring that forth, because what I find, I'm going to go big picture, but then smaller. But big picture from a humanity standpoint, we seem to, as a general, just species, like things to be static, like to think that things don't change. Of course, we all know they change. We know that change is constant, and it's the only constant.
See, that's because you have to trust the unknown, which is that space that we were talking about, and we like what's familiar to us. Yep. So why do even people who were in abusive situations when they were younger and they grow up and I'll never be in this situation? It's because it's the way the wiring and the conditioning went and what is familiar. Yep. As messed up as that may sound, because it's not. It's still, that program is still running. Yep. And it requires the awareness, the spotlight, the illumination to start with that choice, and then to go through all those layers of the wiring and start shifting it.
Yeah, well, and I totally agree. I think that's
so it's the belief systems. It's rupturing the belief systems. But yeah, because we're not told that we're all powerful and that we are, the creators, the creation created to create, and that we have that power. We're taught in many of the religions, like fear God and that shame and guilt, and we have to be born again and all that kind of stuff. And so there's so many systems and programs that are running and keeping us in boxes of false belief systems.
Big time.
Or misleading.
I do work on mindset. And so that is a big piece for, absolutely. The way you described mindset is the same way I do. There's a few extra things that I add in there, but it's I am continuously amazed. I've been working mindset for 7 years maybe. It's been a long time, and I'm still layer, and it made me.
It's that onion, peeling the onion, yeah.
And I was just thinking, this was one big honking onion, because it's I'm thinking, and it's another thing, another fallacy is that we're ever there, we're ever done with that exploration. And I think maybe I started out thinking there was and I am, and I'm blissed out and I'm thriving. I mean, those things are conceptual that I can achieve, but feeling like I have arrived and I don't need to do this kind of work anymore. I mean, I want to do this work, so it's not a problem, but it's that, wow, there are just, the more I dig in, the more layers I find, and these are such deep seated.
But it's exciting.
It's totally, but, sometimes not in a judgment way. I wish it would happen faster. I want that quantum entanglement. I want it to be instantaneous. But at the same point, I think that recognizing the very deep-seated societal influences on worldview. I mean, culturally there are different worldviews, but ultimately they have some very similar underlying belief systems at their basis, and they're belief systems that are assumed sometimes, where all these different things, like you were saying, fear-based things. A lot of these came out. I don't know. Every now and again, I most of the time I believe they're non-intentional belief systems that just came out of people's perspectives and trying to help the next generation. Like if our parents and grandparents said, you don't want to do that, it's going to turn out to be a bad thing for you. You should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be an accountant, because you're going to earn money. And their belief system is then kind of, transferred on to us as kids. We don't really know enough about the world to realize what is and isn't their stuff.
Yeah.
And so we start owning it. And then we don't think about it anymore because we brought it in so early. It's just a matter of fact. And then trying to go through and debunk all of these, not even debunk, just recognize these layers of belief systems that can be very limiting to our personal power. And that overarching view that you had mentioned about it's like we were never, I'm speaking generally, but maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. We were led to believe that we really don't have a whole lot of power individually to affect our lives. We can make choices, but they're all within these
but we have all the power.
Yeah, exactly.
We can rewrite our genes. That's crazy. Yeah. We can totally. I'm working on the Botox gene every night, but
it's working.
But what you were saying before, I think Joey D, that's Dr. Joe Dispenza, calls it the refractory period. So, and we remember we were talking about the onion. Yep. So if you look at it this way, it'll support you. That each time you're going through another layer, instead of thinking, and then I know because I do it too. Oh my God, I gotta revisit this again. I would offer that in that next layer of illumination where you've gone deeper, to really prize yourself and high five yourself on the new awareness you have from when you were kind of, I like to talk atoms. So it's like in the center of the nucleus and you were like way far out here. And like when you're way far out there, the electronegativity here doesn't have that much, you can't, this can get really yanked off really easily by another atom. So that's the valence shell. So you want to pull it in with the power that you're in your core, in your center, in your nucleus. You're strengthening yourself with your new chosen thought and a feeling and everything we were talking about before and aligning. So you're coming in closer and closer. So even though, let's say you started out on like ring 12 and now you're at 7 or 6, it's kind of like, oh my God, I still got to go through it. But I would say one thing we often judge ourselves too much to really acknowledge that, because in that awareness of acknowledging where you come, there's probably so many other jewels of lessons in that will support you there. And then I would offer that it is just a belief system that you feel like you've never arrived.
Yeah,
in terms of enlightenment and whatever. Like, yes, I believe if we're all walking around here. Well, I don't even know if I believe that either. So I don't know. But everything really comes down to a belief system. Yes. So if we, and I was thinking about, I forgot which one of my trio guys put it this way, but if we truly, think about it. This stuff works. It's measurable by science at this point. You can measure the electromagnetic fields. They can look at the brain waves. They can do all that. Oh, let me drop. That's what I want to say about brain waves. When you were talking about the age stages and we're forming from 0 to 6, it is so impressionable. Anything we're told, you're in the subconscious mind. You're in the, delta and theta states, they say. And then 6 to 12, I think it goes into alpha, and then it gets to beta. So in that, where brainwaves are, which we can measure, shout out to all of us who meditate here in the lab and in the classes and our spiritual, protocol and personal time. That's what we're doing. We're getting our brain into certain states of mind where we can connect to that quantum field and manifest. So if there's a personal thing or a situation within you that you wanted to heal, and it's like that onion and you keep getting closer and closer, I do believe in situations like that, there is a place where we do reach like a full emergence and a healing. And then we tell our story from a place of personal empowerment. And in venues like yours, where you can share your story, or like many people here in the lab, we're all sharing our stories, and different people have different businesses and things they do, but most of us are all light workers. And we, I believe, get all those experiences so we can have it and understand it, get different awarenesses, and then support somebody else. And oftentimes with coaches, people who, a coach will usually attract a client who has gone through the same type of experience as they've had. Yeah. because that's just the way it works. But it's a difference from telling the story from a place of power and healing, where now you have a new awareness from like observer self, and you're removed from all that entanglement and engagement with the emotion of it. Oh, Dr. Joey D, great quote, fits right here. He said, emotion, memory, how does it go? Memory without emotion is wisdom. So when you can look at the events and you don't remember, the memory is retelling ourselves something over and over and over and over and over and ingraining it. So when we remove that charge, then we just have the intellectual looking at it. We don't have the emotional charge and engagement with it, because we're now out of that box of belief,
Yeah,
right?
it's like
You get what I
emotional
mean?
detachment, and I'm curious about
It's
that.
like a non-attachment. And then the ACIM talks about that, zooming out. That's all the exercises of the ACIM, zooming out and realizing we give everything around us the meaning that it has.
What's ACIM?
Oh, I'm sorry. A Course in Miracles.
you.
I'm referring
I
to what
always
we
forget that
talked about
acronym.
last time.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. The emotion, or the memory without emotion, is wisdom, and I see that as a process.
And I hope I'm quoting him right. Yeah. Yes.
Because it's like, it's really hard when you're in something, you're feeling really emotionally immersed in it, to just detach from it, and it doesn't
quick
get worked
interrupter.
through then.
Right. No, because it doesn't mean we don't process. A quick interrupter for that is there another way I could look at this situation?
Yeah.
Which there always is. The answer is yes. And okay, how? And I think I don't know if we covered it in our personal conversations or the previous one, but the way we experience people, like I see you, let's say we're at the Bliss Retreat and I see you and I'm like, oh, I'm all excited to see Megan. I'm all excited. And then I'm like, I see you and you kind of just like walk right by me. And then I'm thinking, all of a sudden I think, oh, Megan just walked by me. She's not as excited to see me. Maybe our friendship isn't what I think it is. Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm not that. Meanwhile, I see you later and you're like, hey, Tina. And I'm like confused. And you're like, I had to pee so bad. You know what I mean? So it's like, but we make up all this stuff all the time in our minds. I mean, I'm like, clearly I do it all the time, and I have to zoom out and go, okay, how can I look at this differently? And not make our clarity and our sense of self dependent upon or contingent upon somebody else's behavior.
Yes, exactly.
Then that's insanity. Because it's impossible. Like, it's crazy.
A part of mindset is we have those perceptions, beliefs, and we have these filters that are unique to us based on how we've interpreted all of these experiences and things that have happened in our lives.
Right.
And we create our own identity around those things, and it completely affects how we show up in the world. And a big part of that is based on the stories we tell ourselves. And I just wanted to do a plug for Brene Brown, who I love. And
it's hilarious. Isn't she funny?
Well, on
Netflix. I never knew she was so funny. I like messaged Crystal. I'm like, I didn't realize she was that funny.
Her books are wonderful, but I don't remember laughing as hard as I did for that Netflix thing. So and I think they've finally recognized her humor and are starting to promote it. Totally worth a watch. But one of her big things is about stories we tell ourselves, and she's incorporated into her family where they don't even think about it anymore. They were like, what story am I telling myself? And I tried that on my family, and it was awesome. I had my husband do it. I had my daughter do it. And they're both like, wow, I'm telling myself a different story than Dad's telling about me. And he's telling a different story about himself.
See, because, you just made me think of it. So because we were talking, like the concept of what happened? Are we still here?
I'm fine. I almost pulled my buds out.
Then you'd be on the blooper reel too.
That's right.
Yeah, we're making a blooper reel. But when you ask that question, is there another way to look at it, right? That's what we're talking about. That's the non-attachment. It doesn't mean we're not we think processing it means, we have to go through some tumultuous, whatever, heaving, and I don't know. And we don't. It's as long as we stop running the program. It's like, acknowledge it. I'm feeling it. This is what it is. But now be mindful of the thoughts that you're attaching to that. It's not, I feel, if I feel sadness, somebody dies, I feel sad. I'm going to grieve that person as that. But now if all of a sudden I start going, I'm never going to be able to live without them.
Yeah.
I'm never going to find another husband. I'm never my kid, my kids, I can never do it alone without. Once we start doing that, that's different from processing the grief and sadness of losing a loved one. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the mental attachment. And by asking that question, that's the interrupter that allows us to disengage the thought interpretation from the actual experience of the emotion, because we are going to experience that emotion. Something happens and stuff does shift in our body. Everything is changing. We do have the fight or flight for stressful situations, but what we're doing in this crazy ass world that we all are out picturing from the egoic mind together is a place where where was I just now? Can you believe it? Hello. No.
Allowing ourselves
in the world
to process emotions, but not being attached to those thoughts. And so you were kind of talking about that, and you were going to bring up an example that I don't know what it was. But maybe this will spark.
Can anyone out there psychically guess what it was? I was talking about the world that we're out picturing. And I don't know where I was going to go. It'll pop back in. I'm sorry.
I think it's that we have these, we feel the emotions, and I really want to go into the difference between feelings and emotions, because I think that's going to be really a big thing. And basically,
I know what it was.
Okay, go ahead.
I know what it was. Stress. So we have an experience. Our body is going to respond because there's some kind of, remember we were talking about like emotions being in there. Here's the difference though. We weren't built or made to maintain those high levels of cortisol and those levels of stress or adrenaline rushing through us when we need to pounce or act or do something, or when a mother, and you've all probably heard these stories of the mother whose kid is under a car and the adrenaline rush and her emotions, her systems go into the hormones, everything kicks into it's instant. It happens. That's how we're built. That's the emotion. That's not coming from like, a conscious thought contemplating, does he love me? Does he not love me? Now I feel sad. It's not that. It's immediate responding to what's happening in the electromagnetic field around you.
Yep.
And so in this crazy world, that's where I was. In this crazy world that we're all out picturing together, we maintain high levels of stress. And our body's not sustained to do that.
Right.
And so that's why when you do that, the cells start, downgrading and degenerating, and we start aging, and somebody goes in the White House and they had brown hair and they come out all white hair. You know what I mean? Yep. It's like the levels of stress around us, the toxins in our bodies, the toxic thoughts, the toxic messages. And the challenge is, and I guess this segues back to what you do, mindset. The challenge for us here as light workers or people who choose a spiritual path or who really want to, come into their awareness and be able to, I feel, fulfill what we're here to do, which is be creators and be creative and express, is to, and Jody D talks about this too, is to be able, when someone's being judgy, to hold the space for, apply the compassion, hold the space there. When someone, is operating, from a scarcity mentality or lack, is like, to hold the space for the abundance, and to just counter and shine the light and hold the space for the truth of something, as opposed to what is a function or an outpicturing of the egoic mind, which comes from the belief that we're separate from God. You know what I mean? When we're not, we're in that space. Remember that space we were talking about before, the Joey D space, that the infinite possibility. That's how we get into it, by connecting to our divine mind. That's why everything that we're learning here in the Lightworkers Lab and all of our own personal spiritual pursuits that even got us here in the first place is learning to go within. I mean, the ancients all, talk about it. And I'm obsessed with ancient Egypt, and I wish I could show. I got 3,000-year-old pottery back there. But anyway, they all knew that about, the hormonal systems and the chakras, and anyone who, if you think of the crowns that they have the upper and lower crown of Egypt. Well, the people who interpret the spiritual belief system of ancient Egypt, which is really Kemet, KMT, that's what the ancient Egyptians call themselves. So when you see, people will write it today as KEMET.
Sure.
But, right, they will, they identified that actually with glands. And, it was all about, like we talk about the patriarchy today, totally out of control, right? and here's how it all connects to biology. Okay, stay with me. We're going to do ancient, what the ancients knew, which was way more than us, because we can't build a pyramid yet to this day, cannot build a pyramid, nor can we figure out how they aligned all the pyramids in all the sites on the earth in like a grid and like perfection. So it's funny that we think we evolved. But anyway, shout out to the ancient peeps. But what Bruce Lipton, I think it's Bruce Lipton, talks about a lot is like the balance between the left brain and the right brain. And we know that the left brain is logical, the right is intuitive. You don't want to be like too up out in the clouds, and you don't want to be too, so we don't want the domination of that. And male and female is different. I mean, masculine and feminine is different from saying male and female. It's an energy. So oftentimes when I'm talking to men about this, and it's like, you got to be more connected with your feminine energy, it's like, oh, no, it's not about male or female. It's about having homeostasis in the body and having a balance. And when you have that balance, then you can connect into that space that we've been talking about, which is infinite possibility, which is the quantum field. And so I just find it utterly fascinating how everything is measurable and shown on, a cellular level, electrical charges, how things happen. So this isn't like hocus pocus. This isn't new agey stuff. This is finally us, the evolved ones, reconnecting with what the ancients already knew.
Yeah. I mean, I could go in so many
At least that's the
directions.
way I see it. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I think one of them I don't.
Pick one. I'm sure I'll jump off to another one anyway.
I have one I call a schmear campaign, and I say schmear, not smear. I just believe a long time ago, around a certain period of time, some people consciously decided to eliminate the feminine energies from the world in order to gain dominance in the masculine energies. But I don't think they looked at it quite like that. But because of that, we don't know all of these abilities that we have
that's right, because they were matriarchies in ancient times. It was a matriarchy, and I've often posted about this on Facebook. When you say matriarchy, people think, oh, so then women run everything. No, in a matriarchy, there's the god and the goddess. There's, let's like Ramses the Great, Abu Simbel. He's got, I think he ruled for 67 years, 64 years, whatever. But Abu Simbel, a big, huge statue of him, and Nefertari, who was he had many wives, but she was apparently the bomb because she got a big, huge statue. But there was always and even what the pharaohs wore, the wigs, that the short ones like that, like the scribes, I think, are braided, but the other ones are feminine. And there's something on I'm so out of context right now, but you can Google it. But this is just to tip you off. There's something on the uraeus or whatever that's on the pharaoh, a male pharaoh, where it represents feminine. So they were all about that. So again, this goes into belief systems and things being misrepresented and not having that balance.
So I was going to ask you about, as you were talking about Bruce Lipton, and you were talking about, there was something else in there. So I'm just going to say the question about how do you, I know, holding that space for other people's judgment or other, how do you, I get I think you think you know where I'm going, but I have an additional question, so I'm just going to add it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because I think you're probably saying, how do you do that? And there's an egoic aspect to that gets many of us, including me, triggered.
You're on to me.
But I'm really curious about anger in general, because I'm sitting here wondering about feminine anger, feminine energy anger, and masculine energy anger, because I don't think that the underlying anger that I have, I'm really not an angry person, but some people think I am, and I do have a bit of rage underlying, the more happy part of me that comes up in certain times, and some of it I think is really associated with masculine energy, and some of it I think is really associated with feminine energy.
So I would ask you, what does that rage say? If it had a voice, what does it say?
Well, I'm not going to say what the literal translation is, because
for it. More blooper reel. We'll put like a bam in front of it, or like not a bam. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Like expletive, right? Yeah.
I think there's a whole lot of. I think that the part that's coming out right now for me is grief. I think the anger is based on grief. Unrealized grief about love, about my own self-acceptance or lack thereof, things that I realize when going through these layers that were missed opportunities that, for some reason, I'm looking at it as a one-time opportunity. And so perhaps in this incarnation, at this point in time, you know, it's not like I'm going to go back to when I was 14 or 12 or 9. And so it's not like I'm really attaching thought to it as much as it seems really visceral when it comes out. It's not, I mean, so I can attach this to this experience I've had 2 over the past 2 weeks. I'm calling them anxiety attacks, but I don't really know that that's the fairest assessment of them. Something came up and it triggered a survival instinct. And here I am going, oh, this is triggering a survival instinct. I realize what this is linked to. I realize why I'm having this reaction. And yet I totally freaked out, despite the fact that I was logically aware of everything that was going on and why. Yet I was like, you know, and my husband's like,
we've all been there.
Well, but it really got me to thinking about, I'm doing all of this work in part trying to really understand the roots of that level of anger that I seem to have, that I haven't tapped in.
See, I would say it would be, I think it would be, and why I asked what voice does the anger have? Because I think, and you also said something that is interesting. Anger usually is like the covering emotion over to sadness. So when you said it's covering the grief, that's actually what whoever they are, say. And well, I guess I do know who they are. I think it's psychologists. Okay. Anyway, I'm like, I just dissed them. Sorry, guys. I know who you are. So, and I think when anger happens like that, and I've experienced this in my body, where it's like almost becomes concrete, but I feel like immediate anger, like an instant where it's again going back to kind of like inner survival, assessing a situation, or if an expulsion of immediate, you know, rush of something needed to happen, is different. And so in that situation, I would say, or would want to explore with you, what the situation was, and if we can identify, it's all about identifying the trigger. Because even though there was a level of awareness that you occupied and knew, you were able to decipher a few certain things, there was still something about that experience or that incident that was able to hook into one of your belief systems about yourself, or something maybe that you're currently trying to change. So you're saying, why, when I'm trying to change all this stuff now, and I'm supposed to, you know, have that composure and that dominion, tossing back to what we talked about earlier, then why is this happening? And then that's what I would offer, is that there is something that you have not yet identified. We talked about going through layers, so maybe it's a lower layer, but I wouldn't beat yourself up. I mean, I joke around that I'm like a multi-dimensional Spanish novella. I mean, I'm Italian, but like, you know how they go through 20 emotions in 7 seconds, and it's like, whatever. Like sometimes my friend calls me up. She's like, how are you? She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I just went through 20, like, which part do you want? Which snapshot? I just went through like 20 million different things. You know, so I think, where were we? We were saying identifying the trigger. And that it may not be in your awareness yet. So that instead of judging yourself, have fun with it and be like, okay, I'm going to do it, you know?
You know what? There's a really good point to that. Okay, so first of all, the underlying layer, I thought it was survival, because that's an actual big thread for me. But I think it is something below that. So thank you for pointing that out. But the other thing is, you know, one thing I realized from these last 2 experiences for me was that I have a process, and that is a part of my process. I had to go through this logic, rage, weird combination and allow it to pass through before I could get to a point of more clarity. And the second time it happened, it was shorter. But what I want to say...
Right, the refractory period, right, that we also talked about.
So, but having fun with it, in a way, is a really important thing for me, and hopefully other people listening, that, you know, I've learned most of my life to contain my emotions. And I'm really not that good at containing my emotions. So most of my life, I'm sitting here trying not to cry, trying not to share my voice, trying not to speak my truth for a variety of reasons. And I'm now at this point where that doesn't work at all. And so a part of having fun with it, I think, is to allow myself to do the Spanish, what did you call it? I love that, Spanish novella.
Oh, you know, I'm like a multi-dimensional Spanish novella, going through like 20 emotions in 7 seconds. It's like, I love you, I hate you, you're the best, walk away. You know, they go through everything. I
have Spanish blood in part, and so I can really identify with that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, have fun with maybe it would be good for me to be dramatic. Not necessarily in all of my life, but why can't I go,
See now, yes. Now, see, if I were coaching you, I'd probably be like, for some, I'm pretty dramatic, but I work on it. But I mean, I'm Italian, but and it's funny because I speak Spanish because my high school, shout out the Pingree School, great school. We start first year Spanish. It was all in Spanish. There was no English. So I'm really good with Spanish. People think I'm Spanish. I sound Spanish when I speak. Where were we? Oh my God! Here we go.
No.
I'm in a novella right now. Where were we? We were talking about Spanish.
People allowing the drama, like as a part of having fun with that being triggered.
We were talking about dramatic. I was just telling you, because somebody said everyone thinks I sound Cuban when I speak. Oh. And I'm like, I don't have a Cuban influence. Why is that? So I asked my one friend and he's like, oh, Tina, that's because when Cubans speak, they say they're very dramatic when they speak and it's like this. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. My people, Cuba, like I'm dramatic. That's good. It'll work. It's boring if you don't have a little drama.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but I guess but the fun is being able to like zoom out and really, if we operate from the observer self, that's the part that has access to higher self, call it what you want, access to the quantum field. That's the part that's connected to divine mind that knows the truth. So it's up here trying to show. So when we can zoom out into that and look at it, it's kind of like what psychodrama does when they put, you're acting out and then people get to see their behavior and see what's going, somebody else is acting out one of their situations. But I was saying if I would coach you, be dramatic. I would have you go out and let's go cause some drama. Not to maintain and sustain that, because then that totally negates everything we've been talking about this whole conversation. But what a situation like that in terms of just immediate coaching would be to allow you to start jostling and like liberating those box belief systems that keep you in. So when you step out, we've all experienced this on some level in some way. We have fear about something, we're scared about something, we believe we can't even do it. Then somehow we get that, we get catapulted or catalyst, a prompt to go do it. We somehow snap into it, we're going to do it. And then we all have felt that liberation, like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me probably getting off of here that's going to be like, all right, it's over. Because like leading up to it, I was like, what am I going to say? What are we going to talk about?
So
what if I don't know? What if I don't know what to say? And then it was like, hold on, go to the inner coach. It's like, it'll be fine. I'm just talking to Megan, a few peeps in the lab, it's all good.
Yeah, it was 10 o'clock last night, my time, where I got these,
I'm like, what am I going to...
They were really fun messages.
Don't reveal too much.
Can't I share them? Can I add those?
No, stop it. No.
But it was, I recognize your process, and I think that was a part of it. Is that, have to kind of go full circle, and then it's like, oh, okay, everything's good.
But, and also it's also, and also like in TV, like being a producer is always like, okay, what's the intention for the segment? What are you covering? So that's also like in there. But, but I think it's... Go ahead.
I was just going to ask the question about, now, for you personally, have you found that you can do that, zooming out when you're in the heat of the moment?
I've had to. And ironically, yes. I don't always choose that.
Awesome.
I don't always choose that because sometimes, and I don't. And not even obviously, there's always exceptions to everything I'm saying. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there's a moment. I never tossed a table, but, I was thinking New Jersey Housewives. Anyway, but sometimes I actually check in with myself because I'm really trying to be super self-aware. And after doing like all the classes in the lab and just making a conscious choice to tap into that inner coach, sometimes I'm like, no. Like I work on not being super Italian and raising my voice, whatever. And sometimes I'm like, no. That fits this moment. Yeah. Now the slippery thing is, this real nuanced slippery thing is you got to really know, like if it's serving that intentional purpose or is it bullshit because you're bullshitting yourself because you want to throw around a bunch of spiritual jargon and be like, no, I'm honoring the inner me, and really it's not. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying?
Yeah, so. I totally know what you're saying. There are times I go through this inner process, inner dialogue in these sometimes heated moments where it's like, am I am I serving the other person, but am I also serving myself? Because most of my experiences were not serving myself a lot of times in the past.
Because your first thought, listen to what you said.
The other person.
Am I serving the other person?
Well,
so here's the thing. Hold on, ready? And I'm saying it to myself too, because we all are guilty of this, or we all do this. If you serve yourself first, and yes, we've all heard the example of the airplane or the oxygen mask coming down. Help yourself first, then you can help the whole plane. If you help the first person there, you may or may not get to yourself or be able to help someone else. Right. But even more than that, when you're serving yourself first and you're aligning mind, body, and spirit, and you're connecting back into that center place we were talking about, where nowhere, no thing, nowhere, infinite possibility, portal to the quantum field, then where was I? Come on.
If you're serving yourself first, then...
you're serving yourself first and you're accessing all of that, then you are high vibration, on point. You're a light worker on steroids. You are amped and ready to go to get out there and serve. And only then. And I have to tell myself this all the time, because you can't give what you don't have. If you're operating from a scarcity principle, how can you give anyone anything if you're operating from lack and I don't have anything? But I'm going to validate myself and feel good about myself because I'm going to give what I don't have to you, hoping you're going to have some type of reaction that I can see and experience, then to validate that, to then continue to say, oh, see, it's okay that I don't have, because I'm still a giving, loving person, and my time will come sometime in the future, because I'm not supposed to have, because I'm supposed to be a martyr and serve everyone else. See what I'm saying?
I totally see what you're saying, and I'm thinking about the fact that it makes absolute sense, and it's a pain in the ass to do all the time. I mean, not a pain in the ass. It's hard to do, to remember to do it all the time, especially when you're in a relationship with people. They're used to you being a certain way. You want to extend your boundaries and speak your truth and step into your power and all of that stuff. And it's so easy to fall back into those habits of thinking that are conditioning.
And you asked how to deal when someone, like when you reach a high level of paucity and someone has triggered you.
I love that word.
Paucity. That's a Yondel's word, paucity. And you're in a high level of upset, right? What has served me, and not to get all biblical on you, but I had to use this when I was in the worst time of my life, and that's when I was like over 200 pounds and total, like everything that could have been annihilated on every front it was right before coming to the lab. I forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because they're clearly operating from a belief system, remember that spot over here, and whatever they're in and however they're seeing things, whatever they're doing, that I had to say, I know that if they truly knew what I was experiencing and what was going on in my world, I had to trust and know that there was no way that they would operate the way they're operating. So utilizing my spiritual pursuits and the coaching and what I've been on since, contemplating existence at the age of 3, is that it almost like desensitizes the personal part of it enough for it to take off that like super duper, I'm getting pummeled, like a spear's going through my soul. And then there's the grief and the like hurt and whatever. And so it's kind of like, all right, I'm acknowledging what's coming up for me. What am I feeling? What's going on? And then to free myself, then we go to the next layer where it's like, okay, let's identify the thoughts. And what am I telling myself about myself because of this dynamic I have? And really, when we zoom out and you think of everything just like atoms coming together, it's like, okay, what's up with this atom? What's the charge in here? What's going on in here? This atom's personality. What are the thoughts? Like, how is it interacting with this atom? And how does it go? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I love this.
And even this too. Well, we share. I was going to show you an image. It's like if this atom's here, this atom's here. When we're in people's electromagnetic field or attaching to it because of our thoughts and our feelings, our signature we're sending out. It's like, that image of the 2 circles and then this part in the center where, so it goes like that. That's what we're sharing with people. So whether it's through our thoughts, through our actions, through it's those are the entanglements. So think about, and Crystal has videos on this. Think about the people that you're entangled with. either someone from the past, and like Joey D talks about this, you have something, you know, and this I kind of think speaks to what you're saying about the immediacy of an emotional trigger and then what can happen with it. So let's say you get triggered, you come over, we're hanging out, I trigger you, whatever happens. Then you call up, you know, whoever, I see Kelly in the feed, you call Kelly up and you're like, you know what, Tina, you know, pissed me off with this. I'm in a mood because right now, whatever our interaction was, you're having thoughts about it, feelings about it, having thoughts about it, feelings about it. You know what I mean? It caused an action, the thought, feeling, action cycle. You did an action, you called up.
That is super.
Who did I say? Kelly,
Yep.
Katie. I think I meant to say Katie. You call that person up and now you're in the mood or whatever. Now you're either going to make a choice at that moment to process through, like just say it, like, you know, that immediate release. Like sometimes I call people like, I just want to like vent. Mm-hmm. I'm going to vent. And that's like a verbal journaling, right? And then you go through that whole process we talked about. This was the trigger. All right, this is what's coming up in my body. I'm in terms of emotional upset. What thoughts am I attaching to it that I'm feeling certain ways? Now I'm going to shift that thought to make it work for me, mm-hmm. because it's mm-hmm. all not, yes. It's all illusion. It's yep. all your own, your experience is your perception. Why wouldn't we choose a perception that benefits us? Hello, note to self. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, let's choose a better perception. And so that's a mood, right? If it lasts for a couple of days or whatever. But then if now you just can't stop talking about it because now it's just wired and Tina really pissed me off. And can you believe I had her on my show and then we hung out after and then she did this, 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 and this. And who the hell does she think she is? Now, you know what I mean? Now there's like a vibe and now there's more of a charge and it's going on. And then that whole anger and hostility or whatever, it becomes a temperament. And then it lasts and it's like, oh, this happened, 5 months ago, Tina did this to me, whatever. And when it lasts long enough, it becomes your personality yep. and your overall energetic signature that you occupy. How can you create from that? You can't create from anger because anger is a function of fear. It's only love and fear. So if you're in the realm of fear, you cannot create. You're not in the infinite possibility realm. You're not in the moment to have the momentum of the power of the now. And the way I call the power now is no other way.
Oh,
that's
cool.
what now stands for me. There is no other way. And I utilize that in my coaching. There's no other way except for in the now. That's where you have creative power. You're either going to be in the past, wrapped up in previous emotions and entanglements and conditions and what have you, or you're going to liberate yourself doing, going layer by layer, doing the disengagements, rewiring your mind, rewiring your brain, to be commensurate with the experience you want to have. If I want to experience, driving in a car with my really long hair blowing in the wind and the sun on my face and music blasting, I need a convertible. I need a good radio. I need to get somebody to do my hair. I need some, mm-hmm. banging chic sunglasses to have that whole experience. So I'm going to think thoughts and I'm going to align with that. Maybe I'm like stretching this analogy too much here, but you want it to fit the intention. It has to fit the intention. And the cool thing that Joey D talks about is, and they have studies that prove this, it's not hocus pocus, that if you rehearse the future you want to experience from the now, though, mm-hmm. it's like present now, now, present, future, in the now, intentionalizing your experience, that when you think those thoughts and match it with the feeling that's commensurate with that thought, and you keep doing that, you actually, and they show it on brain scan things, mm-hmm. the brain rewiring. And people who did this for just thinking over playing the piano, like a simple thing, who couldn't play the piano, and then they were taught it and they had to redo it in their mind, can end up playing the piano. Yeah. Because the neural pathways, thanks to neuroplasticity, rewired, and now they can do it. Can we say one more thing about cool stuff in the body? Sure. That was recently? Okay, so for years, and again, if you guys watch Crystal's videos with Neville Goddard, and she also talks about mind-body coherence, that they found after doing like 30 years of heart transplants, doctors among themselves would be talking, saying, it's odd, whoever the receiver was of the heart kind of starts acquiring the talents, the skills, whatever of the people. And they finally decided to investigate this more after doing, I think, 30 or 40 years of transplants. And they identified 40,000 sensory neurites that are in your heart that think independently of the brain. So it's no joke when we're talking mind, heart, coherence to create and manifest when we're talking about the electrical charges of thoughts and and I believe it's in the gut as well.
Yeah.
So you talk about a gut feeling. So I don't know. I just think that to me is incredible. Because remember, I went my whole life trying to validate this stuff to my dad. Like I told you before, a faceless watch in grade school. And I'm like, and he's like, why are you wearing that? Because time doesn't exist. Well, hello. Physicists are with me,
that.
like, I know, I'm like, time's it doesn't exist. So anyway, so it's like cool to have intuitive things, and then you find this array of people. And why I love the trio, Joey D, Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden, is because like they did all the research. Like, I don't have to go do a dissertation and a thesis. Like, let me go find in all the journals, all the experiments. It's like they curated all that information, and it's fact now. It's not hocus pocus. Even like hugging a tree or going out on it, it's a fact that you put your naked bare feet on the soil. There's electrons that you're getting from Earth. What are we all worried about? Oh, antioxidants. You don't want the free radicals, which are positively charged, running through your body, because that damages the cells and whatever, and that causes disease and issues there. So yeah, Mother Gaia, it's no joke, hugging a tree or putting your feet in the soil to ground. And we would often do that, at Ayanla's institute where I studied. All stuff kinds of came up while we were in the room processing things. And oftentimes we'd take someone out. I mean, they're like going through it emotionally and just put their feet on the ground, take their shoes off feet, and it's helpful. And that's why, whether it's not even something people, this is like, whether you believe it or not, we are being affected. And I don't think there's anyone, they don't even have to be spiritual to say, yes, if I'm hanging out at the ocean, or if I'm sitting by a tree, or I look at a beautiful flower, I do feel something, you know what I mean? Something has shifted somewhere. Yeah.
Well, and I'd like, so something I've noticed here, I work from home, and so does my husband. And so like winter in Minnesota, when both people work from home, can be really interesting. It's really gotten me to think about collective mindset, about the kind of energy that is residual within an environment, because we don't always gel. And it's like, if I don't get outside, it's almost like I adapt to a different version of myself. Like you were saying about the Venn diagram, it's really obvious to me in this contained space with somebody else in it at the same amount of time I am. And I think the same is true for offices and families and all of these other things. And really thinking about extracting ourselves from that energy. An example is when somebody leaves a job and it's a toxic work environment, how long does it take to recover? Because it's not immediate. It's almost like you have to detox. But it can be.
Yes. But according to what we're learning, it can be. Like in Joey D's events, he has all this meditation and he's like, you don't have to be a yogi, because hello, how many of us in here judge ourselves like, I don't meditate, I can't meditate, I don't meditate enough. He point blank just says, there's nobody super special who's removed from this. This is the way we're wired. This is how it goes. Leads to meditation. There are people a woman in a wheelchair, I mean, now this sounds all evangelical stuff, but hey, the person in a wheelchair who has MS gets up and walks. People who, like he said, when he first started, he said it took like, he didn't get any feedback for like 9 months, and he's thinking maybe this stuff isn't working. I don't know. Maybe I need to recheck in with myself. Like what? And then all of a sudden emails come in, and they all start with, "You're never going to believe this." People who have stage 4 cancer healed, with doctors blown away, going, "We don't understand what's going on." Biology of belief, and understanding that epigenetics isn't bogus. It's not baloney. We do with what we signal with our thoughts. The mind sends the directive to the body. And it's when we're operating from that 95% we spoke about earlier of unconscious mind, that's the memory. Remember we talked about the memory that's ingrained in the body. So when the body goes on automatic pilot, and this is what Joey D will call a habit, but we're on automatic pilot so many times. I mean, if only 5%, unless we consciously choose to think differently, 5% of our daily thoughts are new thoughts, and 95% is something we think all the time, over and over and over, the belief system, perceptions that's ingrained in our body. So through what he teaches, people have healed themselves, because we're built to be able to heal ourselves. I just think it's incredible.
Oh, I
don't
do.
know. I feel like I want to shout it from the mountaintops.
Well, and
it's just
when I think about that, it's like, okay, so people who leave a company and it's a toxic environment and it takes them 3 months to recover, it's because they believe if they don't believe they have the power to increase that
Yeah, it's whatever it is. It
speed.
either reinforces I'm not good enough to have a job. It reinforces people don't like me. I was never liked in school. It reinforces, I should have never been there in the first place. I didn't pursue my real dreams, and now I lost all those years, and now I can't do that.
Right.
Because at the beginning it sounded positive, and it's like, oh well, now I can't.
Yep.
So then we beat ourselves up. Again, it's
all
those like false
that
facets that
entanglement,
go in, but when you can extrapolate or like just separate out a little bit and zoom out and see, okay, these, again, what we talked about, like it's in the feeling, you feel it. Let's choose a thought that's going to serve the reality I want to experience and the reality I want to move into and manifest.
Have you ever found that that's hard to do, to even allow yourself to believe?
Yes, when I was over 200 pounds and like totally like suicidal, peace out, I'm done, like I don't know where to turn at this point. Yeah. And what I had to do at some point, there was something, I know it was a phone call that happened. Well, yeah, I had to say to myself, because I almost was like, I want to just apologize to God and be like, I know you had big plans for me. I knew it ever since I was little. Apparently I screwed up, like just send me back in dispatch me into another incarnation. But there is like something that's like, no, but I've never felt that hopeless. But I don't know, whatever that inner spark is or something, there was something that was just like, you're trained to, you have to, like, you have no one else. I've watched Locked Up Abroad. You ever see that show where people are in like crazy situations? And I've been inspired by some of them where like, I don't know if I could ever do what they did. And it's like, you are so down and out. What you need to tap into that inner coach, that inner authority, that higher self. And I needed to alleviate the first thing, which I shared with you before, forgive them for they know not what they do, which I had to take that concrete, like of this, that because when you're like, depression to me is the absence of that life force energy. You know what I mean? When you're totally, and it's like this, it's like, you can't, it's like, there's no way to grip in the universe. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? And so that released that, and then other things could be processed in that whole other process we talked about. But yeah, and I realized how much racing thoughts I had back then. And then we know here, and like we're creating thought forms, and then they take on a life of their own, and just being super bombarded. So
it sounds like a moment of truth. It sounds like there's this point where we just don't allow, where we're tired of what is and want. It just get to the point where it's like
it was survival at that point. There was no other. It was either like that or exit scene.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it whittled down to that far, and then it was like, making a choice. And like my friend said, like, you first off, do you want to live or not? Do you want to be here or not? Yeah. And it's like, well, hell yeah. I don't want to go out like a punk bitch. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my language. Yeah, I don't want to be like, woo. I'm like, woo. Like, I love life. You know what I mean? So it's like having to realize and thank God for training up to it, or intuitive inner voice, whatever it is, or the choice to even say how I have to, like, how can you look at this differently? Like, how? Because what I was doing is I was in victimhood and so super duper angry. And then again, repeating it and reiterating and rewiring the rut story and what I believe about the situation that's happening. And when you do that, now I'm operating in that box of belief that's trapped in emotions. It's, you know what I mean? So the first release of that vice grip of pressure or clenching down was the conscious awareness to say, forgive them for they know not what they do. Yeah. And then I could alleviate it from the, like, so, the sword in my soul. And now it's like, okay, now we can get through that part. Now it's like, oh, my heart's wounded and bleeding a little bit. Okay, we can handle that. And then recalibrate to, because none of it's the truth. It's all, my perception interacting with your perception, interacting with someone else's perception, and then the layers of perception. I mean, we've all played the telephone game and we see what happens. So again, our personalities create our reality, and our personalities are our thoughts and feelings. If there's something we want to shift, it has to start there with that conscious choice. And it is true when we shift, and again, people think like, oh, that's corny. When we shift, everything around us shifts, because it has to, because going back to science, which I love, if we're an atom and we're in our nucleus, if we shift something, if we shift how many electrons are in the valence shell, that's going to shift who we interact with this atom over here, and how we interact and what kind of bond we create. So any one little change, like a drop of water, they say, in the ocean shifts the entire ocean. We have to understand that we are part of that fabric of the whole of the quantum field, which now that, scientists are saying space is not empty. There's, stuff exists in space. So there's just so much that, that's out there that, and anybody listening who's inspired remotely by anything we've shared today, just make that conscious choice. Hello, YouTube's amazing. Go on YouTube. I think of stuff and I'm like, DNA, ancient civilizations, whatever's floating your boat. How do I make keto bread? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like whatever's out there, whatever you want to learn about, but to rupture the societal belief systems in the world, yes. So you understand the truth for yourself. Like, I don't believe if somebody's going to lose weight that they should just follow a program that someone gives them if you don't understand. And for me, like, okay, I told you I lost 85 pounds. For me, can we go talk about change? I see a pathway here.
We have 7 minutes.
Change,
just so you know.
I got you. Okay. I'm good. Change the card. If you want, when I was 220 pounds, whatever it was, I refused. I am not buying fat clothes. I was a size 18. I refused. What does that do? I didn't want to be seen. I'm like, I walked around, anybody new I met, I'm like, you don't understand. This isn't me. I haven't been fat my whole life. It's embarrassing because for me it was, let me say, because it's like I'm wearing my dysfunction. Mm-hmm. If I'm a hoarder, you only know I'm a hoarder if you come to my house. I can walk out and look amazing outside and you don't know my issue. So to me, it was like, I can't hide from that. I'm in a effed up, excuse my language, situation right now, all types of messed up. And so what I realized I had to do was utilize the principle of acceptance. I had to first accept you are 220 pounds. Because when we argue against the current reality that's based on our current personality, thoughts and feelings and belief systems, then that's suffering. So people hear acceptance and they think, oh, that means I'm saying it's okay and I don't want it to change. No, acceptance is aligning to the current moment to be able to be like, here's where you are, assess it, now where are we going? Mm-hmm. And so what I had to do, I had to go to Marshall's, shout out to Marshall's, and buy a few items for a decent amount of money that I could look pretty in or feel good in, you know what I mean? Yep. Or somehow resonate with. And then I was able to lose 85 pounds. So it was like, for all this time that I had this tension and resisting it, I can't accept it. There's no way I'm 220 pounds. Like, what the hell would happen to me? You know what I'm saying? And I think that applies to so many things. Somebody may have an issue. It's not that they're 220 pounds, but it's some other type of issue that's coming up. And where are we creating that tension? Because when we have that tension and that resistance, that maintains the connection, that you're resisting something. It means there's something on the other side you're resisting. So what is that? What is that condition? What is that belief system? Who is that person? Why is it that person that affects you that way? Is it because they remind you of what your father did to you when you were little? Or is it because, they are mirroring something that's within you that you aren't willing to change yet? Mm-hmm. So you're calling them, you're controlling, you're this, you're that, but you're really the controlling one. Yeah. And that's why you see it in them. And that's why you're vibrating in this way. So we have to liberate our thoughts, liberate our body from the emotional, box belief system that is ingrained in, and rewire to where we want to go. It sounds so easy, right?
I know. I'm like,
I want to go recreate my life, and then I'm like, suddenly this other vibe came in. I'm like, oh no, don't go there. Stay high vibe. So anyway,
that was fantastic, Tina. Our time.
It was so much fun. It is. What time is it?
Yeah, it's like, it's hour and a half after we started.
Yeah.
I love how quickly time flies when you and I talk. And so
me too.
I'd like to have you.
Thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.